Welcome back. We cross now to Canberra to talk with Jim Wallace about what's happening in politics. Thanks for joining us, Jim.
My pleasure, David.
The two biggest issues occupying everyone's thoughts are the bushfire tragedies and Australia's response to the global financial crisis. Any insights, Jim, from a Christian perspective?
Well, yes, I think there are, David, and we've got to be very careful not to oversimplify these issues, both of them very complex. But in the case of the economic crisis, for instance, we know that it has been the absence of really Christian ethics and principles applied in the economic space that has caused this. You know, we have greed, for instance, at the corporate level in both the levels of remuneration that executives want and also in the profits that corporations demand. But even at the lower level, you know, we have this all caused by the fact that people couldn't wait for a house, they had to have it now. And so I think there's a real need to re-establish Christian values in these areas.
Yeah, but what about the bushfires, Jim?
Yes, well, with the bushfires again, and again not wanting to oversimplify a tragic issue, but we have people going out and actually starting these bushfires, you know. And for years we've driven Christianity out of the public space, out of our schools, and so we're creating a generation of people who don't have a Christian ethic. And we've got to get out there and say, look, the reality is that people who are brought up with a Christian ethic, a strong Christian ethic, who have the indwelling spirit of Christ in them, will not light bushfires.
And how can we change this situation?
Well, I think it's very important that the church takes the opportunity of these two tragedies to actually get out there and say, look, we've walked away from Christian principles. You know, we've rejected the Christian voice into the public space, into our institutions, into our education, and this is the result. And so we have to re-establish it. We have to get an acceptance that the church needs to be in there making a noise in these areas.
Jim, in terms of the global financial crisis, I understand there's been some news on Australia's commitment to foreign aid. Can you share something with us?
Yes, it's good news when everything seems so tight that the government has reaffirmed that it's going to meet its commitments, its election commitments to the Millennium Development Goals. And certainly the OECD has welcomed this and the fact that we will be continuing to try to push in the medium term to this 0.5% of our gross domestic product going to overseas aid. So that's got to be good.
So what is the main focus of Australia's aid program?
Well, most of it's focused on the Asia-Pacific area. There is also an attempt to try to do some targeted work into Africa.
Has our aid been making a difference?
Yes, it has, David. I mean, we've seen polio virtually eradicated in the Pacific, for instance. We have 980 new schools in Timor. We have 9,000 teachers trained in the Philippines. And we have 1.5 million Papua New Guinea children who've been inoculated against measles. So when you see these things happening, you've got to say it's having effect.
Well, that's some good news to finish on. Thank you for your time today, Jim.
Thanks very much, David.